Imagine a world transformed by relentless cold, where vast landscapes stretch endlessly under a thick, frozen blanket. Towering glaciers carve valleys, rivers are locked solid in ice, and snowdrifts rise like silent mountains under the dim light of a low winter sun. This is the Ice Age, a time when survival was not guaranteed, and every day brought a delicate balance between life and death. Early humans did not simply endure this frozen world. They had to master it, learning to read the land, anticipate danger, and adapt to one of the harshest climates in Earth's history. The air itself could freeze exposed skin in minutes. Nights were the most perilous, when temperatures could plunge far below freezing and darkness stretched like an endless, impenetrable shroud. Imagine a caveman huddled near a small fire, the only warmth in a world otherwise ruled by frost and shadow. Beyond the circle of flickering light, predators lurked, hidden beneath snow-laden forests or in the shadows of jagged rocks. The threat of hypothermia was constant, the risk of starvation looming, and yet life persisted. Survival demanded ingenuity, courage, and a profound understanding of the natural world. These Ice Age landscapes were both breathtaking and merciless. Snow-covered plains reflected a pale, silvery light, and forests bowed under the weight of frost. Streams glimmered as if frozen mid-flow, capturing a moment of time suspended in ice. For the humans of this era, every journey through such a world required careful calculation, an awareness of every step, every sound, every sign that might indicate danger or opportunity. The very ground beneath them could conceal death, from hidden crevasses to predators lying in wait. And yet, humans thrived, not because the environment was forgiving, but because they became intimate with its rhythms, learning to live in synchrony with a world defined by extremes. Central to their survival was a mastery of the night. While the sun offered warmth and the ability to hunt or forage, darkness introduced fear, uncertainty, and vulnerability. The night was a living entity, stretching across frozen landscapes and magnifying every risk. Wolves, saber-toothed cats, and other predators prowled silently, guided by instincts honed over millennia. The Ice Age human, despite being at the top of the food chain in terms of intelligence, faced the challenge of staying alert when nature itself seemed to conspire against them. The stakes were stark. One misstep, one moment of inattention, could mean death. But humans were not passive victims of this icy realm. They learned to manipulate fire, fashion clothing from animal hides, and build shelters that could shield them from the brutal cold. They organized in small, cooperative groups, sharing warmth, knowledge, and vigilance. Each member played a crucial role. Some hunted, others kept watch, and all contributed to the fragile equilibrium between survival and extinction. There was strategy behind every action, from selecting the driest firewood to arranging sleeping positions near the embers, ensuring that every night passed with at least a sliver of security. In this frozen world, imagination and observation merged. Early humans read the sky, the behavior of animals, and the subtle changes in wind and snow. They discovered that certain caves offered better insulation, that specific plants could supplement scarce winter food, and that fire could extend not just warmth but life itself. In this sense, survival was as much about intellect and foresight as it was about strength. The Ice Age demanded a full engagement of body, mind, and community, an unbroken awareness of the delicate thread that separated life from death. This documentary invites viewers to step into that world, to see through the eyes of those early humans as they faced freezing nights and endless challenges. We will explore the ingenious strategies they developed to endure winter, from selecting night watchers to mastering fire, creating tools, and forging social bonds that were as vital as the warmth of any flame. Through this journey, we will witness not only the harshness of the Ice Age, but also the brilliance of human adaptation, the courage, creativity, and resilience that allowed our ancestors to survive in a world that demanded everything from them. By immersing ourselves in this frozen past, we can begin to understand the delicate balance of fear and hope, danger and ingenuity, isolation and community. The Ice Age was a crucible, forging the very essence of what it meant to be human. And tonight, as we follow their story, we enter a world where every night was a test, every dawn a triumph, and survival a daily masterpiece of adaptation and perseverance. The life of Ice Age humans was a continuous negotiation between the comfort of community and the relentless demands of the natural world. Each day was structured around the pursuit of survival, yet within that struggle existed moments of ingenuity, collaboration, and even joy. Daily routines were dictated by the seasons, the availability of food, and the unyielding environment. Yet human adaptability ensured that life persisted despite the constant threat of cold, hunger, and predators. For these early humans, every action, no matter how small, could tip the balance between life and death. Morning in a prehistoric camp often began with the first rays of pale sunlight cutting across snow-covered landscapes. Families would stir near smoldering embers, tending fires that had burned through the night. The warmth of the fire was more than a physical comfort. It was a psychological anchor, a symbol of safety in an otherwise unpredictable world. While some members of the group prepared to hunt or gather, others maintained a shelter, repaired clothing, or inspected weapons. Each task carried a purpose, reinforcing the collective survival of the community. The stark contrast between the secure, glowing circle of the campfire and the freezing wilderness beyond was a daily reminder of both vulnerability and ingenuity. Hunting was both a necessity and a skill honed over generations. Men and sometimes women would track herds of mammoth, bison, or reindeer, interpreting footprints in the snow, patterns of animal movement, and signs of previous hunts. Knowledge of terrain, animal behavior, and seasonal migration was critical. A miscalculation could mean a failed hunt, leading not just to hunger, but to potential weakness in the group's ability to endure winter nights. Meanwhile, smaller prey, birds, and forage plants supplemented their diet, highlighting a balance between strategy and adaptability. The contrast between the abundance of the hunt and the scarcity of winter food underscored the precariousness of life, shaping both diet and decision-making. Gathering food was no less strategic. While large animals provided meat and fat essential for warmth and energy, early humans relied on roots, nuts, berries, and tubers to supplement their nutrition. Ice Age winters made this increasingly difficult, forcing humans to preserve what they found during warmer months. Techniques for storage included burying food in frozen ground or using natural containers, demonstrating foresight and ingenuity. These practices reflected a profound understanding of the natural world, revealing an early form of resource management that was crucial for surviving months when hunting alone could not sustain life. Social life formed the heartbeat of daily existence. Small groups or family units, often numbering between 10 and 30 individuals, depended on cooperation for survival. Roles were clearly defined yet flexible. Hunting, gathering, childcare, and watch duties rotated as needed. These social structures were underpinned by trust and communication. Storytelling, the earliest form of oral history, allowed the transmission of knowledge about past hunts, dangerous terrain, and seasonal changes. Tales of success and failure were shared not merely for entertainment, but as critical lessons for survival. The contrast between social warmth within the group and the freezing, often hostile environment outside reinforced the importance of cooperation and collective intelligence. Shelters, ranging from natural caves to constructed huts of wood, stone, and hides, were central to the daily rhythm. They were more than mere physical protection. They were the spaces where knowledge was shared, tools were crafted, and bonds were strengthened. Inside, humans could tend fires, prepare meals, and rest, sheltered from the wind, snow, and predators. Outside, the landscape was dangerous and unpredictable, and exposure could be fatal. The careful placement and maintenance of shelters, The insulation of walls with furs and a selection of strategic locations revealed early humans' sophisticated spatial awareness and survival planning. Clothing, often layered furs and skins, was a daily necessity rather than a choice. Early humans understood that proper insulation was a matter of life and death. Skilled artisans within the group used bone needles to sew together hides, creating garments suited to the brutal cold. Every stitch mattered. Every layer served a purpose. Clothing allowed mobility in frigid temperatures, enabling hunting, travel, and vigilance. The contrast between warmth provided by crafted clothing and the biting chill outside illustrated the delicate balance humans maintain between the environment and their survival strategies. Daily life also included rituals and early forms of spiritual practice. Even in the harshest conditions, humans displayed a desire for meaning and comfort. Markings on cave walls, arrangements of bones, or small ceremonial fires may have reflected attempts to understand their world, influence the unseen, or strengthen communal bonds. These practices, though fragmentary in the archaeological record, hint at the psychological strategies humans employed to cope with fear, uncertainty, and the ever-present threat of death during winter months. Despite the constant struggle, moments of creativity and play persisted. Children learned survival skills through imitation and play, honing the abilities that would keep them alive. Adults found solace in storytelling, music, or ritualistic practices. These moments of cultural expression, though small, reinforce social cohesion and mental resilience. The interplay between danger and security, fear and ingenuity, survival and joy, characterized the daily rhythm of Ice Age life, shaping both the body and mind of early humans. In understanding the caveman lifestyle, we see not merely a fight against nature, but a sophisticated dance with it. Every movement, every choice, and every innovation reflected a deep understanding of the environment, the seasons, and the intricate balance required for survival. Life was fragile, yet it was infused with purpose, creativity, and intelligence. As we explore their strategies in the coming sections, we begin to appreciate how Ice Age humans transformed fear into foresight, chaos into order, and the unforgiving cold into a stage for human ingenuity. The Ice Age was a world governed by extremes, a frozen landscape where survival demanded constant vigilance and an intimate understanding of the environment. Winters stretched endlessly, blanketing the land in snow, ice, and biting wind. Rivers froze solid. Mountains were crowned with glaciers, and forests became silent, ghostly realms of frost. These extreme conditions shaped every aspect of human life, from the timing of hunts to the design of shelters, from clothing to the selection of routes for travel. Winter was not merely a season. It was a force that defined existence, forcing humans to innovate, cooperate, and adapt with every passing day. The cold itself was an invisible predator. Sub-zero temperatures penetrated clothing and skin, sapping strength and dulling senses. Frostbite and hypothermia were constant threats, claiming those who underestimated the harshness of the environment. Even simple tasks became arduous. Lighting a fire required dry wood, hunting demanded careful planning, and the journey from one shelter to another could be a deadly gamble. The ability to perceive and respond to subtle environmental cues, the color of clouds, the scent of the wind, the behavior of animals, was the difference between survival and death. Early humans developed an extraordinary sensitivity to these cues, creating mental maps of the land that guided them through winter's relentless challenges. Snowstorms were particularly deadly, transforming familiar terrain into a treacherous maze. Whiteouts could obscure landmarks, disorient travelers, and leave hunters stranded far from camp. Deep snow slowed movement and concealed predators. Ice on rivers and lakes was deceptive, sometimes strong enough to support weight, other times breaking unexpectedly, threatening to plunge the unwary into freezing water. Early humans learned to read subtle signs, the sheen of ice, the patterns of snowdrifts, the behavior of prey animals. This knowledge was passed down through generations, a combination of observation, memory, and cautious experimentation. Winter was a teacher, relentless yet instructive, compelling humans to respect its power. Food scarcity defined the rhythm of winter. In warmer months, humans could rely on abundant plant foods, fruiting trees, and plentiful prey. Winter, however, brought famine-like conditions, forcing humans to ration carefully, preserve meat, and track animals over long distances. Hunting large mammals required coordination, patience, and knowledge of migration patterns. Smaller game and forage plant matter became critical supplements. The contrast between periods of abundance and scarcity shaped not only diet but social behavior, cooperation, and innovation. Early humans learned to plan months in advance, storing resources, creating tools, and even observing natural phenomena to predict seasonal changes. Wind and weather amplified the brutality of the cold. Gale-force gusts could drive snow through the smallest gaps in shelter, chilling even the well-insulated body. Storms could isolate groups, cutting off access to water, food, or hunting grounds. The howling wind was more than discomfort. It was a constant, oppressive force that tested endurance and resolve. Humans responded by seeking natural barriers, constructing windbreaks, and positioning fire strategically. Every night, every shelter, and every choice became a matter of life or death. And the most successful groups were those who could anticipate, adapt, and endure the worst that winter could deliver. Yet winter was not only a time of scarcity and danger. It also shaped innovation and intelligence. The need to survive cold nights encouraged the development of layered clothing, insulated shelters, and efficient fire-making techniques. Humans experimented with different materials, discovering which furs provided maximum warmth or which plants could supplement their diets. They tracked the habits of prey animals, understanding which routes offered reliable hunting and which areas were too dangerous to traverse. Ice Age humans became keen observers, their survival dependent on the fusion of practical skills and intuitive understanding of the environment. The psychological challenge of winter cannot be understated. Long nights, sometimes lasting up to 14 hours, forced humans into darkness that magnified fear and uncertainty. Shadows from flickering fires danced across cave walls, blending reality with imagination. Isolation, hunger, and cold could induce stress and despair. In response, humans developed social rituals, collective watches, and shared responsibilities. The act of keeping the fire alive, telling stories, and maintaining vigilance was as much psychological as practical, reinforcing a sense of control over an otherwise uncontrollable environment. Winter was as much a test of the mind as the body, demanding courage, resourcefulness, and a capacity to endure prolonged hardship. Ice and snow also influenced the movement and settlement patterns of humans. Glacial expansion forced migration, while frozen rivers and lakes created both barriers and pathways. Certain regions offered natural protection, such as caves or rock shelters, while others were open and exposed. Humans became adept at reading terrain, identifying safe passages, and establishing temporary camps that maximized access to food while minimizing exposure to risk. Survival was not passive. It required constant negotiation with the landscape, a delicate balance between exploration and caution. Animals played a crucial role in understanding winter's challenges. Predators adapted to hunting in snow, becoming more dangerous when food was scarce. Prey species altered migration patterns, forcing humans to follow or anticipate their movements. Observing these animals was not mere curiosity, it was a survival strategy. Knowledge of predator behavior, herd dynamics, and seasonal cycles informed hunting, resource management, and safety practices. Humans and animals were locked in a continuous dance of observation and adaptation, each influencing the other in the frozen theater of the Ice Age. Ultimately, winter shaped every aspect of Ice Age life. It dictated daily routines, survival strategies, and social organization. It transformed familiar landscapes into deadly arenas and demanded the full engagement of human ingenuity, strength, and cooperation. While the cold and ice were relentless, they also fostered creativity, adaptation, and resilience. By understanding winter in all its harshness, the biting wind, the deceptive ice, the scarcity of food, and the threat of predators, we gain insight into the extraordinary capabilities of early humans. Their ability to thrive, not merely survive, in such conditions is a testament to intelligence, foresight, and the power of social cooperation. This section lays the foundation for understanding why early humans developed sophisticated strategies for survival. It explains the context in which nightly watches, fire-making, clothing innovation, and communal cooperation became not just useful but essential. As we move into the following sections, we will see how Ice Age humans turned knowledge into action, fear into vigilance, and the harshness of winter into opportunities for innovation, ensuring that life endured even when the cold seemed insurmountable. As daylight faded and the sun dipped below the horizon, the Ice Age landscape transformed into a realm of uncertainty and danger. Darkness was not simply the absence of light. It was a force that magnified every threat. Shadows merged into shapes, sounds were amplified, and every rustle of wind through trees or snow-laden branches became a potential warning. The night revealed the vulnerability of humans, reminding them that survival depended not only on strength and skill, but on vigilance, awareness, and the cooperation of the group. Predators of the Ice Age were both numerous and formidable. Wolves traveled in coordinated packs, silently tracking prey across frozen plains. Saber-toothed cats and cave lions stalked silently among forests and rocky outcrops, their keen senses making them nearly invisible until the moment of attack. Hyenas and bears were opportunistic, exploiting weakness wherever it appeared. Humans, despite their intelligence and social strategies, were at constant risk. Even the most cautious hunters could be caught unawares, and nights demanded a level of alertness that few modern humans can imagine. The contrast between the relative safety of the camp and the lethal world just beyond its edge was stark, shaping behavior, organization, and sleep patterns. Early humans developed acute observational skills to navigate these dangers. Every sound, smell, or movement could signal life or death. The subtle crunch of snow might indicate a predator's approach, while a distant howl could warn of an encroaching pack. Tracking skills honed during daylight extended into night hours, allowing humans to anticipate threats and respond with strategic planning. Knowledge of predator behavior, preferred hunting grounds, and seasonal movements was critical. Humans learned not only to avoid danger, but to manipulate it, positioning fires, barriers, and lookout points to deter or detect threats. Nighttime vigilance was not the responsibility of a single individual. Groups developed systems of rotation, assigning members to stay awake while others slept. These night watchers served as both guardians and sentinels, ensuring that sleep did not come at the cost of safety. Choosing who stayed awake involved considerations of strength, alertness, experience, and sometimes even temperament. The role required courage, as the watcher faced both the freezing night and the ever-present possibility of encountering predators. The act of standing watch became an essential survival strategy, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of risk management and collective responsibility. Darkness also heightened psychological challenges. Fear was a constant companion, intensified by the unknown and the imagination. Shadows could appear as predators, and every crack or movement outside the shelter demanded attention. Early humans relied on communal reassurance, shared stories, coordinated fire placement, and collective vigilance to calm anxieties and reinforce the sense of control over a world that could otherwise feel hostile and indifferent. Fear was not merely an emotion. It was a survival tool, sharpening senses, guiding decisions, and motivating caution. The environment itself amplified threats. Snow muffled sounds, creating deceptive quiet, while icy winds carried the faintest scent of prey or predator over long distances. Ice on rivers and lakes could conceal predators beneath its brittle surface, while dense forests provided ambush points. Humans had to read the landscape carefully, learning which areas were safest and which posed hidden dangers. The subtle contrast between light and shadow, open plains and dense woods, safe firelight and the surrounding darkness, dictated movement, strategy, and even choice of sleeping arrangements. Predators were not the only danger at night. Exposure to freezing temperatures posed an equally lethal threat. Without constant movement or proximity to fire, humans risked hypothermia. Nighttime work, including tending the fire, maintaining shelter, or standing watch, required endurance and careful resource management. Failing to keep the fire alive could mean death not from predators, but from cold itself. Survival depended on balancing vigilance with physical preservation, a delicate equilibrium that required both experience and instinct. Despite these threats, humans also learned to turn darkness into an advantage. Nighttime offered cover for certain hunting strategies, allowing humans to approach prey more stealthily. Coordinated group movement and strategic lighting of fires could manipulate animal behavior or deter predators. Knowledge of the night environment became a critical extension of survival skills, demonstrating that mastery over darkness was as important as mastery over daylight. Ice Age humans adapted their senses, routines, and social systems to not merely endure the night, but to use it to their benefit when possible. In essence, the night of the Ice Age was a test of human ingenuity, courage, and collaboration. It revealed the fragile boundaries between life and death and highlighted the importance of social cohesion, vigilance, and strategy. Every crackle of fire, every glance toward the shadows, and every rotation of the night watch reflected a complex understanding of risk, environment, and human capability. Early humans faced darkness not as passive victims, but as active participants, navigating a perilous world with intelligence, foresight, and courage. By understanding the threats of the night, we can appreciate why early humans developed communal strategies, fire-making skills, and rotational watches. These adaptations were not merely practical. They were essential innovations that allowed humans to endure the harshest hours of the Ice Age. Night was dangerous, yes, but it was also a canvas upon which human resilience, observation, and cooperation were painted, illuminating the path for vulnerability to survival. In the freezing darkness of an Ice Age night, sleep was a luxury that had to be earned through trust, skill, and communal responsibility. Unlike the modern world, where sleep is taken for granted, prehistoric humans faced a delicate balance. The body's desperate need for rest against the constant threat of predators, freezing temperatures, and unforeseen dangers. Falling asleep could mean vulnerability, yet staying awake meant fatigue and exposure. This paradox created a system of vigilance, where survival depended not only on the intelligence of individuals, but on the cooperation and structure of the entire group. Nightly watches were not random or casual. Early humans understood that continuous observation required both strategy and fairness. Groups often rotated the responsibility, assigning the role of night sentinel to those most capable of alert vigilance. Strength, alertness, experience, and psychological resilience were all considered when choosing who would remain awake while others slept. The sentinel's task was daunting: to maintain awareness in near-total darkness, to interpret every sound, every rustle of snow, and to distinguish between harmless movement and potential threats. This role was not only critical for survival, but also a reflection of social trust and mutual dependence within the group. Sleep itself was highly structured and situational. Humans adapted to fragmented patterns, often sleeping in short bursts rather than long, uninterrupted stretches. This polyphasic sleep allowed them to remain partially alert, to respond quickly if danger arose. In some cases, individuals closest to the fire or on the outer edge of the shelter were lightly resting, but ready to wake at a moment's notice. These adaptations were evolutionary and practical, blending physical necessity with acute environmental awareness. Fatigue could be deadly, yet constant wakefulness could compromise decision-making, so a delicate equilibrium was maintained between rest and vigilance. The placement of sleepers and sentinels within the camp was strategic. Elders, children, and the weak were often positioned near the center, shielded from both cold and predators. Stronger, more experienced adults took positions on the outer edges, acting as first lines of defense. Fires were placed to maximize warmth and visibility, their light creating zones of safety that extended outward but could never completely eliminate danger. The careful orchestration of space, movement, and attention reflected a sophisticated understanding of risk management that was crucial for winter survival. Social trust underpinned the system of night watches. Each member of the group had to believe that others would perform their duty without fail. Failure in vigilance could result in disaster, predator attacks, loss of food, or death from exposure. Yet the system also relied on communication, both verbal and nonverbal. Hushed whispers, shared glances, or subtle signals could alert others to approaching danger without revealing their position to predators. This interplay of observation, communication, and trust was a testament to the intelligence and social cohesion of Ice Age humans. The psychological demands of staying awake were immense. Darkness magnified fear, making every noise a potential threat. Eyes strained to see through shadows, ears attuned to the faintest crackle of snow or whisper of wind. The sentinel had to manage these heightened senses while avoiding panic or overreaction, maintaining focus throughout the long, freezing night. The mental resilience required for this role was as critical as physical endurance, and it is likely that experience and temperament determined who could bear the responsibility of night vigilance. The selection process for who would remain awake often followed subtle social rules. Some evidence suggests that younger adults, physically robust and less prone to fatigue, were preferred. Experienced hunters, familiar with predator behavior and the sounds of the environment, were also highly valued. In smaller groups, rotation ensured that no single individual was overburdened, balancing the needs of rest with the needs of protection. The role carried both honor and danger, reflecting the delicate interplay of survival, skill, and social hierarchy. Nighttime vigilance also extended beyond immediate threats. Early humans observed the environment for changes in weather, animal movement, or other signals that might affect the group's survival. A distant howl could indicate approaching wolves. A sudden gust of wind might warn of an incoming storm. Footprints in snow could signal recent hunting activity. Sentinels acted as the eyes and ears of the entire camp, turning instinct and observation into actionable knowledge. The vigilance of a few ensured the safety of all, demonstrating the critical importance of collaboration in a world dominated by uncertainty. Fire played an essential role in supporting night watches. The sentinel relied on the glow and warmth of embers to illuminate the perimeter, deter predators, and maintain alertness. Fires had to be tended throughout the night, requiring skill in both fuel management and placement. Sparks, smoke, and flame were not merely sources of heat. They were lifelines, signaling human presence to predators and providing a psychological anchor for those maintaining vigil. The combination of fire, observation, and strategic positioning created a layered defense system that enabled humans to survive nights that would have otherwise been lethal. The system of sleep and vigilance also reinforced social bonds. Shared responsibility cultivated mutual dependence, trust, and empathy. Members understood that survival depended on cooperation, and this understanding shaped behavior, communication, and hierarchy. Nightly watches were as much a social institution as a survival strategy, a ritual that reinforced the cohesion necessary to endure extreme conditions. The interplay between individual duty and communal reliance highlighted the sophistication of Ice Age human society, demonstrating that survival was not only about skill, but about social intelligence. Ultimately, the practice of night watches illustrates a profound principle of Ice Age life. Survival was never solitary. It required the integration of physical endurance, mental resilience, observation, trust, and communal coordination. Sleep was not merely rest. It was a negotiated, strategic activity embedded within the broader framework of survival. Those who mastered this balance ensured not only their own survival, but the survival of their families and community. In this delicate dance between rest and vigilance, humans turned fear into foresight, exhaustion into discipline, and darkness into a controlled environment where survival remained possible. By understanding the careful orchestration of sleep and vigilance, we begin to see the foundations of later human innovations: organized labor, cooperative defense, and structured social systems. The lessons learned during freezing nights, when every sound could signal danger and every ember of fire was precious, reveal the extraordinary intelligence, adaptability, and resilience of our ancestors. These strategies ensured that life endured, even when the cold and darkness threatened to overwhelm it entirely. In the frozen landscapes of the Ice Age, fire was more than a tool. It was the lifeline that separated life from death. The flickering glow of embers provided warmth in a world where temperatures could plummet far below freezing. It illuminated shelters, revealing both the faces of kin and the edges of danger. It was a source of comfort, a focal point around which early humans gathered, strategized, and strengthened social bonds. Fire was the heartbeat of survival, an invention that transformed vulnerability into opportunity and fear into a manageable reality. Mastering fire was a skill honed through careful observation, experimentation, and necessity. Early humans learned to strike sparks from stone, create friction between wood, or harness natural flames such as lightning-ignited fires. Knowledge of what materials ignited easily, how to sustain a flame, and how to transport it from one location to another became essential for enduring long winters. Fire was not a casual convenience. It demanded skill, precision, and constant attention. Those who could control it effectively gained a profound advantage over both nature and predators. The practical benefits of fire extended beyond warmth. It was central to cooking, transforming raw food into more digestible, nutrient-rich sustenance. Cooking meat softened tough fibers and neutralized harmful bacteria, while heat extracted calories from plants and tubers that might otherwise have been indigestible. The ability to cook not only improved nutrition, but also increased the energy reserves necessary to survive harsh winters. In essence, fire converted resources into life itself, providing the caloric energy needed for both physical exertion and thermoregulation. Fire also served as a formidable deterrent against predators. The glow and smoke of a fire indicated human presence, often warding off wolves, bears, and other carnivores that might otherwise threaten the camp. Sparks, flames, and controlled smoke became tools of intimidation, extending human influence into the night. The strategic placement of fires around shelters created a protective perimeter, allowing humans to monitor entrances, maintain observation points, and manage escape routes. The interplay of firelight and shadow shaped both defense and vigilance, demonstrating the sophistication of early human ingenuity. Tending a fire was a communal task that reinforced social bonds. One person might feed the embers, another arrange logs for optimal airflow, while others remained alert to changes in wind or temperature. The process demanded attention, coordination, and shared responsibility. Failure to maintain a fire could be catastrophic. Cold, exposure, or a predator attack could follow quickly. Yet when managed successfully, the fire became a symbol of security, a tangible representation of human mastery over the environment. Around it, families gathered, children were nurtured, and knowledge was passed along in whispered stories or quiet instruction. Fire also shaped the architecture and layout of shelters. Hearths were often positioned centrally, allowing heat to radiate evenly and illuminating the entire space. The arrangement of sleeping areas, storage, and tools took into account the warmth and light provided by flames. Even the smallest detail mattered. Wind direction, ventilation, and insulation determined whether a fire could sustain itself through the night or falter under icy gusts. The design and placement of fire and shelters illustrate the merging of practical knowledge, observation, and foresight, a critical aspect of Ice Age survival. The psychological impact of fire cannot be overstated. In a world dominated by darkness, cold, and predators, the fire provided a sense of control and reassurance. Its warmth eased tension, and its light transformed the unknown into the familiar. For the night watcher, tending the fire was both a practical task and a psychological anchor, maintaining alertness while providing comfort to those sleeping nearby. Fire turned fear into confidence, isolation into community, and vulnerability into a manageable challenge. It was both a literal and symbolic heart of the human settlement. The maintenance of fire extended beyond immediate survival. Early humans developed methods to transport embers from one camp to another, ensuring continuity of warmth and the ability to establish new shelters in distant locations. They learned which woods burned longer, which plants could create lasting coals, and how to shield fires from snow or rain. These practices indicate foresight, planning, and an understanding of cause and effect. Fire was not simply a reaction to cold. It was a tool for shaping the environment, extending human agency across both space and time. The mastery of fire also influenced social hierarchies and roles. Those skilled in creating and maintaining fire were highly valued, as their expertise directly affected the safety and survival of the entire group. Elders, experienced hunters, and fire tenders occupied essential positions within the community, their knowledge passed down through instruction, demonstration, and sometimes ritual. Fire-making became an intergenerational skill, linking practical survival with cultural transmission and shaping the social structure of early human groups. Fire shaped not only the physical but the cultural landscape. Its light provided the perfect canvas for storytelling, art, and early rituals. Cave paintings, carvings, and symbolic arrangements may have been created in the glow of flickering embers. The fire facilitated communication, allowing humans to pass on knowledge about hunting strategies, predator behavior, and seasonal cycles. It became a medium through which culture, memory, and identity were preserved and shared, a central element in the evolution of human society. Winter nights without fire were unthinkable. Those who lacked it faced a high likelihood of hypothermia, predation, and hunger. The presence of fire transformed the night from an oppressive threat into a controlled environment where strategies could be executed, decisions could be made, and sleep could be undertaken safely. Fire was the ultimate equalizer in the Ice Age, bridging the gap between human frailty and environmental extremes. Its mastery was a defining characteristic of human survival and a cornerstone of the development of civilization itself. Even the smallest ember held profound significance. It was a symbol of knowledge, power, and human ingenuity. Preserving it required diligence, collaboration, and foresight, demonstrating that survival was never passive. It was active, deliberate, and strategic. Around these flames, humans negotiated the delicate balance between rest and vigilance, warmth and exposure, safety and danger. The fire was the center of life, illuminating not just the surrounding darkness, but the path toward human resilience and innovation. In understanding the role of fire, we begin to comprehend the extraordinary intelligence and adaptability of Ice Age humans. Fire was far more than heat. It was a tool of survival, a social catalyst, a psychological anchor, and a medium for cultural expression. It allowed humans to thrive in freezing landscapes, to extend activity into the night, and to transform an inhospitable world into a habitable one. The mastery of fire symbolizes humanity's capacity to control, adapt, and innovate, an essential theme in the story of survival during the Ice Age. In the unforgiving winters of the Ice Age, fire alone could not guarantee survival. Human ingenuity extended beyond flames into the creation of tools and clothing that transformed vulnerability into resilience. Every artifact, from a sharpened flint to a carefully sewn fur garment, was a product of necessity and imagination, designed to endure temperatures that could drop far below freezing. Tools and clothing were not mere conveniences. They were lifelines, critical defenses against a world dominated by ice, snow, and predators. Stone tools formed the backbone of survival. Flint, obsidian, and other hard stones were shaped into knives, scrapers, and projectile points, allowing humans to hunt, prepare food, and craft other essential items. The process of flint knapping required precision and foresight, as a single misstrike could ruin the material or create a dangerous edge. These tools extended the human body's capability, transforming hands and arms into instruments capable of cutting through flesh, breaking bone, or carving wood. Each tool was carefully maintained, sharpened, and repaired, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of materials and mechanics. Tools were essential for clothing production. Needles carved from bone allowed humans to stitch together furs and hides, creating layered garments that trapped warmth effectively. The design of clothing was adapted to the environment. Thick pelts insulated against wind, while lighter furs allowed mobility during hunting. Footwear, gloves, and head coverings were essential for preserving extremities, which were most vulnerable to frostbite. Every seam, every layer, and every choice of material reflected meticulous observation and trial-and-error experimentation. The garments of Ice Age humans were practical masterpieces, optimized for both protection and movement. Beyond hunting and clothing, tools were critical for constructing shelters. Sharp implements cut wood, shaped stones, and helped manipulate natural materials into protective barriers. Early humans understood the importance of efficiency, crafting multi-purpose tools that could perform multiple tasks in the freezing environment. This combination of innovation and adaptability was key to survival, as limited resources demanded maximum utility. Tools were extensions of a human mind and body, converting raw materials into instruments capable of resisting the harshest conditions. Clothing and tools also played a social and symbolic role. The ability to create effective garments and tools distinguished skilled individuals within the group. Experienced hunters or craftsmen earned respect, as their expertise directly affected the survival of the community. Knowledge of toolmaking, sewing, and material selection was passed down through instruction and demonstration, ensuring that essential skills persisted across generations. Clothing, in addition to providing warmth, could signify status, experience, or role within the group, reflecting the intertwining of practical and social utility. The process of creating tools and clothing was labor-intensive and time-sensitive. Hides had to be cleaned, stretched, and tanned. Stones had to be located, shaped, and polished. Threads had to be made from sinew or plant fibers. Each step required skill and patience, often undertaken during daylight hours or within the safety of a firelit shelter. The reward was immediate. The ability to endure cold nights, hunt effectively, and protect oneself from environmental hazards. These innovations were a testament to foresight, problem-solving, and an intimate understanding of the natural world. Ice Age humans also demonstrated remarkable adaptability in their choice of materials. They selected hides from animals suited to the climate, furs with insulating properties, and bones or antlers strong enough to withstand repeated use. Stones were chosen for sharpness, durability, and ease of shaping. These decisions reflected empirical knowledge accumulated over generations, demonstrating a sophisticated approach to resource management. Human survival depended on using the environment intelligently, transforming natural materials into tools and garments capable of withstanding extreme cold. The combination of tools and clothing created a layered defense system. Furs protected the body, tools allowed for food acquisition and shelter construction, and both provided a sense of control over an otherwise hostile environment. Humans were no longer passive victims of winter. They were active participants, manipulating the landscape and resources to ensure survival. This interplay of physical protection, practical skill, and cognitive strategy highlights the intelligence and creativity of early humans. Clothing and tools were also critical for mobility and hunting. Proper insulation allowed humans to pursue prey over long distances without succumbing to cold, while sharp implements enabled efficient processing of meat, hides, and other materials. Tools enhanced strength and dexterity, making humans more formidable hunters and more capable builders of shelters. Clothing and tools together transformed vulnerability into empowerment, allowing humans to operate effectively in conditions that would have immobilized an unprepared individual. The importance of tools and clothing extended to safety and defense. Weapons crafted from stone, bone, and wood allowed humans to deter predators, hunt large game, and protect their communities. Clothing insulated against environmental hazards, but also allowed humans to blend with their surroundings during hunting or migration. The integration of technology and material science into daily survival illustrates a level of problem-solving and adaptability that was essential for enduring the Ice Age. In essence, the creation and use of tools and clothing represented a form of mastery over the environment. Fire provided warmth, but tools and clothing provided agency. Humans could shape the landscape, manipulate resources, and protect themselves against threats that would otherwise be insurmountable. These innovations reflect the intersection of intellect, skill, and social cooperation, demonstrating that survival was not merely a matter of instinct, but of planning, learning, and cultural transmission. By understanding the role of tools and clothing, we gain insight into how early humans transformed the harsh Ice Age world into a space where life could endure. Every sharpened flint, every stitched fur, and every crafted implement was a testament to ingenuity and foresight. These defenses against the cold highlight the remarkable adaptability, intelligence, and resilience of humans, a combination of qualities that allowed them to thrive in some of the harshest environments our planet has ever seen. In the frozen expanses of the Ice Age, survival depended on the ability to secure and manage food through long, merciless winters. Unlike warmer seasons, when resources were abundant and easily foraged, winter presented scarcity, danger, and the constant challenge of ensuring enough nourishment to maintain strength and warmth. The quest for sustenance was a daily struggle, requiring skill, strategy, cooperation, and foresight. For early humans, food was not merely a source of energy. It was a lifeline that dictated movement, social organization, and the rhythms of survival. Large game formed the cornerstone of winter diets. Mammoths, bison, reindeer, and other megafauna provided meat, fat, hides, and bones, all essential resources for enduring the cold. Hunting these massive creatures demanded meticulous planning and coordination. Humans worked together to track herds, predict migration patterns, and execute strategies that maximized efficiency while minimizing risk. A single misstep could result in injury or death, making every hunt a high-stakes operation. Yet the rewards were immense. A successful hunt supplied calories to survive weeks of scarcity, materials for clothing and tools, and communal nourishment that reinforced social bonds. The challenges of winter hunting were compounded by environmental conditions. Snow drifts slowed pursuit, icy rivers concealed hidden hazards, and freezing winds drained energy quickly. Hunters needed specialized clothing, sharpened tools, and intimate knowledge of the terrain to succeed. Observation of animal behavior was crucial, tracking footprints, listening for distant calls, and interpreting subtle signs in the environment allowed humans to anticipate movements and locate prey. These skills were honed over generations, passed down as essential knowledge, and formed the foundation of human ingenuity in the Ice Age. Smaller game and supplementary food sources were equally critical. Birds, rabbits, fish, and edible plants supplemented large game meat, providing necessary nutrients during periods when hunting was less successful. Humans developed traps, snares, and fishing techniques to capture these animals efficiently, demonstrating versatility and adaptability. Even in harsh winter conditions, they found ways to extract sustenance from the environment, turning scarcity into opportunity through observation creativity, and careful planning. These smaller sources were not minor. They often determined whether a group could endure weeks of scarcity without succumbing to hunger or weakness. Food storage became a central strategy for winter survival. Early humans discovered methods to preserve meat, fat, and plant material, extending their utility over time. Freezing itself acted as a natural preservative, but humans also buried supplies in snow or cold ground, hung them in trees, or constructed insulated storage areas. Proper management of food reserves required meticulous planning and foresight. Groups learned to ration supplies, balancing immediate needs with long-term survival, ensuring that even when hunting failed, the community could endure. The practice of storage illustrates a critical cognitive leap. Humans were not merely reacting to the environment. They were anticipating future challenges and taking proactive steps to secure survival. The communal nature of hunting and food management reinforced social bonds. Large-game hunts required cooperation, trust, and division of labor, while food sharing ensured that vulnerable members, children, elders, or the injured, survived periods of scarcity. Food was both practical and symbolic, representing the success, skill, and cohesion of the group. Rituals surrounding distribution, preparation, and consumption reinforced social norms and maintained harmony, ensuring that the survival of one was intertwined with the survival of all. Scarcity demanded collaboration, and cooperation became a cornerstone of Ice Age human society. Fire played an essential role in food management during winter. Cooking transformed raw materials into digestible, calorie-rich sustenance. It allowed humans to extract maximum energy from meat and plant matter, making limited resources more effective. Additionally, fire preserved warmth during preparation, created light for nighttime tasks, and served as a deterrent to predators while hunting or processing food. The combination of fire, skill, and strategy ensured that food could be both procured and utilized efficiently, enhancing survival even under extreme conditions. Environmental observation was also critical to food security. Humans learned to track animal migration patterns, seasonal availability of plants, and predator-prey dynamics. These insights informed hunting strategies, storage practices, and travel routes. By predicting the availability of resources and adapting their behavior accordingly, humans minimized risk and maximized efficiency. The capacity to interpret environmental signals, combine them with experience, and act decisively was a hallmark of Ice Age intelligence and a vital component of winter survival. Scarcity also imposed psychological challenges. Hunger intensified fear, stress, and urgency. Groups needed to maintain morale and cohesion to survive extended periods with limited resources. Storytelling, social rituals, and shared meals reinforced communal bonds, providing both practical and emotional sustenance. Early humans understood that survival was not only physical, but psychological. Maintaining hope, trust, and cooperation was as critical as securing calories or warmth. In this way, food management extended beyond the stomach. It became a cornerstone of social resilience. Winter food scarcity demanded innovation. Humans developed specialized tools for hunting, processing, and storing resources. Sharp knives, spears, and scrapers enabled the efficient use of meat, hide, and bone. Snow shelters, insulated containers, and preservation techniques extended the lifespan of food. Humans adapted their strategies to environmental conditions, alternating between mobility to pursue prey and stationary camps to conserve energy and protect resources. The interplay of innovation, observation, and social coordination ensured that scarcity did not become catastrophe. The lessons of winter survival through hunting and food management highlight the remarkable ingenuity of Ice Age humans. They did not passively endure scarcity. They anticipated, adapted, and acted with foresight. Large-game hunts demonstrated physical coordination and strategic planning. Small-game traps and plant foraging showed resourcefulness. Storage techniques revealed cognitive foresight, and social sharing ensured communal resilience. Together, These strategies formed a comprehensive system of survival that balanced immediate needs with long-term planning, fear with foresight, and danger with opportunity. In essence, food in winter was far more than a means of sustenance. It shaped movement, social organization, technology, and cultural practices. Hunger drove innovation, scarcity fostered cooperation, and survival depended on the intelligent integration of knowledge, skill, and foresight. Understanding how Ice Age humans hunted, stored, and managed food offers a window into the extraordinary adaptability, resilience, and intelligence that allowed them to endure one of the harshest environments in Earth's history. In the harsh winters of the Ice Age, finding or creating a suitable shelter was as vital as securing food or fire. The landscape was unforgiving, with freezing temperatures, blizzards, and predators all threatening survival. Humans needed spaces that offered warmth, protection, and strategic advantage, and their choices reflected an intimate understanding of the environment. Whether a natural cave or a constructed hut, shelters became the center of daily life, the stage upon which survival strategies were enacted and social bonds reinforced. Caves were often the first choice for winter refuge. They provided natural insulation from wind and snow, stable temperatures, and a defensible position against predators. The depth of the cave and the orientation of its entrance were critical. Entrances facing away from prevailing winds reduced exposure to harsh gusts, while interior spaces offered warmth retention. Archaeological evidence shows that early humans often modified caves, adding stone walls, rearranging debris, and creating hearths to maximize comfort and safety. A well-chosen cave was more than a shelter. It was a fortress in a frozen wilderness. Constructed shelters, made from wood, bone, and hides, were equally important in areas without suitable caves. These structures required ingenuity, skill, and an understanding of insulation principles. Poles and branches could be arranged to create frameworks, while hides acted as windbreaks and insulation. Stone or packed earth provided stability and additional warmth. The design of these shelters reflected an advanced knowledge of materials and structural principles, allowing humans to extend their range into previously uninhabitable areas. These constructions were labor-intensive but provided a critical advantage in extreme conditions. The interior layout of shelters was carefully considered. Fires were placed centrally to radiate warmth, while sleeping areas were positioned to maximize insulation and minimize exposure. Storage spaces for food, tools, and clothing were arranged for accessibility and safety. Social organization influenced placement within the shelter. Elders and children were often closer to the center, while able-bodied adults took positions nearer to entrances, acting as early warnings against predators. These arrangements were not arbitrary. They reflected a sophisticated understanding of risk management, spatial awareness, and communal responsibility. Insulation was key to shelter effectiveness. Furs, leaves, moss, and other natural materials were layered to provide warmth, dampen noise, and absorb moisture. Sleeping areas were elevated or cushioned to reduce contact with cold floors, and bedding arrangements allowed multiple layers of heat retention. Humans experimented with materials, discovering which combinations provided the greatest protection from wind and frost. These innovations highlight the empirical knowledge and problem-solving abilities that were central to winter survival. Location played a critical role in the selection of shelter sites. Proximity to water, food sources, and hunting grounds influenced where humans chose to settle. Strategic placement also considered predator behavior. Areas with natural barriers, elevated ground, or narrow access points reduced the likelihood of surprise attacks. Mobility was balanced with stability. Some groups established semi-permanent winter camps, returning to them year after year, while others moved in response to resource availability. Understanding the landscape and its dangers was essential, and shelter choice reflected this acute environmental awareness. The psychological impact of shelter cannot be understated. In a world dominated by cold and predators, shelters provided a sense of security and control. Fire, shared space, and the presence of community transformed fear into reassurance. These refuges became the settings for social interaction, storytelling, teaching, and planning. The shelter was both a physical haven and a psychological anchor, allowing humans to rest, recover, and prepare for the challenges of the next day. The contrast between the interior warmth and the bitter exterior underscored the importance of careful selection and construction. Shelters were also sites of cultural expression. Evidence of markings on cave walls, arrangements of stones, and ritual placement of objects suggest that humans imbued these spaces with meaning beyond mere survival. Ceremonial fires, symbolic carvings, and patterns in sleeping arrangements may have served both social and spiritual purposes, reinforcing group cohesion and transmitting knowledge. These elements indicate that shelter was not only practical, but also a canvas for human creativity, memory, and culture. Predators influenced shelter design and vigilance. Entrances were monitored, and warning systems were developed to alert inhabitants of approaching danger. Shelter structures had to account for escape routes, defensive positioning, and quick access to tools or weapons. Observation of predator behavior informed decisions about when to move, which shelters to use, and how to fortify spaces. The integration of environmental awareness with construction and social organization illustrates the complex decision-making that underpinned survival. Ultimately, shelters were central to the Ice Age human experience. They provided warmth, security, and a controlled environment in which life could continue despite extreme winter conditions. Every choice, from location to layout, insulation to fire placement, reflected a deep understanding of survival, risk, and human needs. Shelters transformed the landscape, creating spaces where humans could endure, thrive, and maintain social cohesion. They were more than mere refuges. They were the foundation of survival, ingenuity, and early cultural development in a frozen world. By understanding the strategies behind shelter selection and construction, we gain insight into the resourcefulness, foresight, and intelligence of early humans. Shelters were not passive structures, but active tools in the battle against winter. They exemplify how humans transformed the environment into a habitable space, blending observation, creativity, and social coordination to endure one of the harshest climates on Earth. In the relentless cold of the Ice Age, clothing was not a matter of fashion. It was a critical tool for survival. Every layer, every material, and every design decision reflected an intimate understanding of the environment and the human body's vulnerabilities. Frostbite, hypothermia, and exhaustion were constant threats, and without effective clothing, even the strongest individuals could succumb to the winter's harshness. Humans turned raw materials from their surroundings into insulation, protection, and mobility, transforming vulnerability into resilience. The foundation of Ice Age clothing was animal hides and furs. Humans selected species with dense undercoats and long guard hairs, optimizing warmth retention. Multiple layers were often combined to trap air and provide insulation, mimicking the natural principles of thermoregulation. Sewing techniques, honed with bone needles and sinew threads, allowed for fitted garments that minimized heat loss and maximized mobility. The knowledge of which hides were best suited for different conditions was accumulated over generations, reflecting empirical observation and experimentation. Footwear was a particularly critical component of winter clothing. Frostbite of the feet could be fatal, limiting mobility and exposing the body to further cold-related dangers. Humans crafted boots and wrappings using multiple layers of fur, leather, and plant fibers. Insulation was often enhanced with moss or grass, materials that trapped air and prevented direct contact with snow and ice. Proper footwear allowed humans to traverse icy landscapes, pursue prey, and maintain access to vital resources without succumbing to the cold. Every step became an exercise in survival, with clothing serving as both shield and enabler. Hands, ears, and heads required special attention. Gloves, mittens, and head coverings were essential to prevent extremity injuries. These items were carefully fitted and layered, often using softer furs on the inside for comfort and tougher hides on the outside for durability. The The design of gloves and mittens allowed dexterity while maintaining warmth, crucial for hunting, tool-making, and fire tending. Head coverings minimized heat loss from the skull, one of the body's primary heat escape points. In combination, these garments protected humans from the lethal interplay of wind, moisture, and cold. Clothing also reflected the integration of fire and shelter strategies. Garments were designed to complement the warmth of fires, the insulation of shelters, and the movement required for hunting or travel. Layers could be added or removed depending on activity, allowing humans to manage body heat efficiently. This adaptability was critical. Overexertion could lead to sweating, which, when cooled, could accelerate hypothermia. The clothing systems of Ice Age humans were dynamic, reflecting both environmental understanding and careful attention to physiological needs. Innovation in materials was constant. Humans discovered that certain furs repelled moisture, that plant fibers could supplement insulation, and that layering increased effectiveness. They learned to tan hides to increase durability, to weave fibers for flexibility, and to combine materials to optimize warmth without sacrificing mobility. Each garment was a synthesis of trial, error, and accumulated knowledge, demonstrating a remarkable ability to manipulate natural resources for survival purposes. Clothing was also deeply social. Skilled individuals who could produce effective garments held significant status within the group. Mastery of sewing, material selection, and repair was respected, as clothing directly affected the survival of others. Sharing knowledge about proper insulation, layering, and garment care was an essential aspect of community cohesion, ensuring that even the youngest and least experienced members could endure harsh conditions. Clothing became both a practical necessity and a marker of expertise, linking survival skills with social structure. The psychological impact of effective clothing cannot be overlooked. Feeling warmth and protection enhanced confidence and reduced stress, enabling humans to focus on hunting, observation, and social cooperation. Clothing provided a sense of security that complemented the physical safety of shelters and the warmth of fire. It allowed humans to venture further, remain active longer, and endure the elements with less fear. In this way, clothing was not merely physical armor. It was a psychological enabler, reinforcing resilience and determination. Preparation and maintenance were critical. Garments needed constant repair, cleaning, and adaptation. Ice, snow, and repeated use wore down materials, making skill and maintenance as important as initial construction. Knowledge of sewing, patching, and layering was continually applied, and failure to maintain clothing could result in injury or death. The time and care devoted to clothing reflected its centrality in survival strategy, highlighting the meticulous attention Ice Age humans paid to both immediate needs and long-term resilience. Mobility and hunting were directly influenced by clothing design. Flexible joints, layered insulation, and tailored footwear allowed humans to move effectively across icy plains, hunt large game, and escape predators. Overly bulky or poorly constructed garments could hinder survival, illustrating the delicate balance between protection and mobility. Humans continually refined their clothing to meet the demands of the environment, ensuring that survival strategies were supported, not hindered, by the garments they wore. Clothing also intertwined with cultural identity. Patterns, decoration, and construction techniques may have signified group affiliation, skill level, or social role. These symbolic elements, while secondary to function, reinforced community cohesion, transmitted knowledge, and provided a sense of shared identity. In essence, clothing was a medium that connected practical survival with social and cultural expression, reflecting the complexity of Ice Age human life. Ultimately, clothing and insulation were central to the story of winter survival. They allowed humans to endure extreme cold, navigate hazardous landscapes, hunt efficiently, and maintain social cohesion. Each layer of fur, each stitch seam, and each carefully chosen material reflected an extraordinary combination of observation, innovation, and communal knowledge. Clothing transformed the body from a vulnerable target into a mobile, protected, and adaptable system capable of thriving in one of the harshest climates in Earth's history. By examining the sophisticated strategies behind clothing and insulation, we gain a window into the intelligence, adaptability, and foresight of Ice Age humans. These garments were not passive coverings. They were active tools in survival, shaping movement, social dynamics, and psychological resilience. Through clothing, humans bridged the gap between vulnerability and endurance, demonstrating a level of ingenuity that ensured life could persist even in the coldest and most dangerous conditions. In the harsh winters of the Ice Age, survival was never a solitary endeavor. Humans relied on cooperation, trust, and the careful distribution of roles to endure freezing temperatures, scarcity of food, and the ever-present threat of predators. Social life was a vital tool for survival, shaping behavior, decision-making, and daily routines. Every member of the group, from the youngest child to the most experienced elder, played a critical role in maintaining the delicate balance between vulnerability and resilience. Cooperation began with hunting and food acquisition. Large-game hunts demanded coordinated strategies, communication, and division of labor. Some individuals drove prey toward ambush points, while others waited in strategic positions with tools or weapons. Success depended on timing, trust, and understanding each other's capabilities. Food obtained from these hunts was shared according to social norms, ensuring that weaker or more vulnerable members, children, the elderly, or the injured, received sustenance. This system of mutual reliance reinforced group cohesion and underscored the direct link between social bonds and survival. Daily life was organized around collective tasks. Fire tending, shelter maintenance, and clothing repair were all shared responsibilities, requiring coordination and planning. While some focused on immediate survival needs, others engaged in teaching skills, caring for young, or scouting the surrounding environment. The integration of individual effort into communal work reflected a sophisticated social structure. By pooling labor and knowledge, humans could achieve outcomes far beyond what a single person could accomplish, demonstrating the power of collaboration in extreme conditions. Conflict resolution and social norms were equally critical. Tensions inevitably arose in small groups confined by harsh weather and scarcity. Yet mechanisms existed to manage disputes, maintain harmony, and ensure that survival priorities took precedence. Elders or skilled mediators often guided decisions, while cultural practices, rituals, and shared expectations reinforced cooperation. Social cohesion was not incidental, it was essential. A fractured group was vulnerable, while a unified community could endure the harshest winters. Social life also extended to the distribution and management of resources. Knowledge of food reserves, fire maintenance, and tool allocation was shared strategically. Certain individuals oversaw stockpiles or monitored critical supplies, ensuring equitable access and preventing depletion. These systems reflect early human understanding of resource management, accountability, and collective responsibility. The group's survival depended on the careful balance between individual needs and communal well-being, highlighting the intricate social intelligence of Ice Age humans. Communication was a cornerstone of cooperation. Gestures, vocal signals, and early symbolic language allowed humans to coordinate complex tasks, warn of danger, and transmit knowledge. Nonverbal cues were equally important, conveying urgency, agreement, or guidance in situations where sound could betray location to predators. The sophistication of early human communication underpinned both social organization and survival strategy, enabling the group to respond dynamically to environmental challenges. Child rearing and education were integral to social life. Knowledge of fire-making, hunting, clothing, and shelter construction was transmitted through observation, demonstration, and guided practice. Children learned survival skills gradually, participating in minor tasks before assuming more critical responsibilities. This process ensured that each generation retained essential skills and knowledge, creating continuity in survival strategies and reinforcing the interdependence between age groups. The family unit, extended by the group, formed a network of learning and protection. Trust was both a practical and psychological necessity. Night watches, hunting coordination, and resource management all required confidence that others would act responsibly. The consequences of betrayal or negligence could be fatal, making reliability a central value in Ice Age social life. Trust was earned through repeated cooperation, shared labor, and mutual protection, reinforcing bonds that extended beyond immediate survival. Social networks were lifelines, integrating safety, efficiency, and emotional resilience. Rituals and shared activities reinforced cooperation and cohesion. Communal meals, storytelling around the fire, and simple ceremonies fostered a sense of belonging, purpose, and identity. These practices strengthened social bonds, maintained morale during harsh winters, and provided a framework for transmitting culture and knowledge. Shared narratives also serve as practical guides, encoding lessons about hunting strategies, predator behavior, and seasonal survival. Culture and survival were intertwined, with social rituals playing a direct role in maintaining life in extreme conditions. Vulnerability in the Ice Age created opportunities for innovation in social organization. Rotational responsibilities for night watches, cooperative hunting, and collective shelter construction were not arbitrary. They were deliberate strategies to manage risk and maximize survival. Each task was distributed according to skill, strength, and experience, reflecting an advanced understanding of human capabilities. In this sense, social life was not merely a byproduct of human interaction. It was an adaptive mechanism that shaped how groups responded to the environment. Psychological support was another critical aspect. Life in extreme cold, with constant threats from predators and scarcity, placed enormous stress on individuals. The presence of a cohesive social group mitigated fear, reduced anxiety, and allowed humans to take calculated risks. Encouragement, reassurance, and social engagement helped maintain vigilance, energy, and morale. Ice Age social structures were not only practical. They were protective, buffering individuals from both physical and psychological challenges. The integration of cooperation and social life extended to mobility and migration. Groups coordinated movements to follow prey, access food sources, or find better shelter. Decision-making involved discussion, observation, and consensus, balancing risk with opportunity. Shared leadership and collective intelligence allowed humans to navigate dangerous landscapes effectively, demonstrating the sophisticated interplay between social dynamics and environmental mastery. Ultimately, social life was the backbone of survival. Individual skill mattered, but the coordination, trust, and shared responsibility of the group determined success in the harshest winters. Cooperation enhanced hunting efficiency, resource management, and defense, while social bonds mitigated stress, transmitted knowledge, and reinforced culture. Ice Age humans survived not only because of physical adaptations or technological ingenuity, but because of their ability to function as cohesive, intelligent communities. By understanding the role of social life in survival, we gain insight into the origins of human culture, collaboration, and leadership. Cooperation was not optional, it was essential. It shaped behavior, reinforced skills, and created systems that allowed humans to thrive in environments that were otherwise deadly. The social fabric of Ice Age communities provides a window into the extraordinary intelligence, empathy, and adaptability of our ancestors, a foundation upon which the success of the human species was built. While the harsh winters of the Ice Age demanded constant attention to survival, early humans also developed rituals, beliefs, and spiritual practices that went beyond mere necessity. These practices provided structure, meaning, and psychological relief in a world dominated by danger, cold, and scarcity. Fire-lit caves, snow-covered landscapes, and the quiet of night offered the perfect backdrop for the emergence of symbolic thought, storytelling, and ritualistic behavior. Humans sought not only to endure the environment, but to understand, interpret, and influence it through cultural expression. Rituals often revolved around hunting, food preparation, and the cycles of nature. Before a hunt, groups may have engaged in symbolic actions designed to ensure success or placate the spirits of prey animals. These practices could involve gestures, chants, or offerings, reflecting a deep awareness of the interconnectedness between humans, animals, and the environment. Hunting rituals reinforced cooperation, focused attention, and provided a psychological framework that reduced fear and uncertainty, turning a dangerous activity into a structured communal experience. Beliefs were also tied to survival and protection. Early humans attributed unseen forces to the unpredictable elements, predators, and seasonal changes that shaped their lives. Concepts of spirits, guardians, or protective forces may have emerged to explain danger and provide a sense of control over the uncontrollable. Such beliefs offered psychological comfort, helping individuals and groups manage anxiety and maintain vigilance during long, perilous winters. The intertwining of belief and practical survival illustrates the cognitive sophistication of early humans. Caves and shelters often served as sacred or symbolic spaces. Wall markings, carvings, and the arrangement of objects suggest that these spaces were more than functional. They were venues for spiritual and social expression. Fire became a central element in ritual, symbolizing life, warmth, and human mastery over the harsh environment. Storytelling around the fire, perhaps accompanied by songs or chants, created a shared narrative that reinforced cultural memory and social cohesion. These practices linked survival with meaning, shaping human cognition and community identity. Death and the afterlife may also have been a focus of early rituals. Burial practices, deliberate placement of objects with the deceased, or marking of graves indicate an awareness of mortality and a desire to honor or protect those who had passed. Such practices extended beyond immediate survival, reflecting abstract thought, empathy, and a sense of continuity. Rituals surrounding death likely reinforce social bonds, reminding the living of shared responsibilities and the fragility of life in a harsh climate. The rhythm of the seasons influenced spiritual and ritual life. Solstices, animal migrations, and environmental changes were observed and interpreted, forming the basis for calendars, ceremonies, and communal planning. Winter, with its extreme cold and scarcity, was a particularly potent time for ritual activity. Actions designed to ensure warmth, protection, and sustenance became both practical and symbolic, blending survival with spiritual expression. These practices demonstrate how environmental awareness shaped culture and cognition. Rituals also reinforced social hierarchy and roles. Certain individuals, such as elders, shamans, or experienced hunters, may have been responsible for leading ceremonies, guiding the group in ritual practice, or interpreting signs from the environment. Their knowledge and experience gave them authority, integrating social leadership with spiritual responsibility. This dual role strengthened cohesion, ensuring that survival knowledge and cultural practice were transmitted together, reinforcing both practical and psychological resilience. Storytelling was central to ritual and spiritual life. Tales of successful hunts, encounters with predators, and lessons learned from elders provided entertainment, education, and guidance. Storytelling allowed the transmission of knowledge across generations, encoding survival strategies in narrative form. At the same time, stories imbued everyday life with meaning, helping individuals navigate fear, uncertainty, and the harshness of winter. In this way, narrative and ritual were intertwined, shaping both cognition and communal identity. Symbolic expression extended into art and decoration. Cave paintings, carvings, and personal adornments reflect early humans' desire to record, communicate, and perhaps influence their world. Animals, abstract patterns, and representations of humans were depicted with attention to detail and placement, often in areas illuminated by firelight. These artistic practices were not merely aesthetic. They conveyed cultural memory, reinforced social bonds, and reflected spiritual or ritual significance. Creativity became a survival strategy, connecting human cognition with expression, observation, and anticipation. Rituals provided psychological benefits critical for survival. The harshness of winter, scarcity of resources, and constant threats of predators created chronic stress. Ritualized behavior, shared beliefs, and ceremonial gatherings fostered calm, focus, and group cohesion. They reduced fear and uncertainty, allowing humans to approach hunting, travel, and shelter construction with a clear mind. In essence, ritual was a cognitive tool, enhancing mental resilience while simultaneously reinforcing social and cultural cohesion. The integration of survival, ritual, and belief highlights the sophisticated intelligence of Ice Age humans. They did not separate practical needs from symbolic thought. Instead, they blended observation, experience, and meaning into daily life. Fire, shelter, clothing, hunting, and social cooperation were intertwined with ritual and belief, creating a holistic system in which survival and culture were inseparable. This synthesis of practical and symbolic thought laid the foundation for the complexity of human societies that would emerge over millennia. Ultimately, rituals, beliefs, and spiritual practices provided more than comfort. They shaped behavior, reinforced social norms, transmitted knowledge, and strengthened community cohesion. Humans endured winter not only through fire, clothing, and hunting, but also through shared meaning and symbolic engagement. The interplay between survival and spirituality demonstrates that Ice Age humans were both pragmatic and imaginative, capable of transforming fear, scarcity, and cold into structured, meaningful experience. By examining rituals and beliefs alongside other survival strategies, we gain insight into the cognitive, cultural, and social sophistication of early humans. Their ability to find meaning in a dangerous world, to ritualize essential practices, and to embed knowledge in symbolic forms reveals a species capable of both practical ingenuity and abstract thought. In the frozen landscapes of the Ice Age, humans did more than survive. They created a world of meaning, resilience, and culture, preparing the foundation for everything that would follow. The Ice Age was not only defined by freezing temperatures and scarcity of resources, it was also a world teeming with predators and threats that demanded constant vigilance. Humans lived in a precarious balance, their survival hinging on observation, quick thinking, and defensive strategies. Wolves, bears, saber-toothed cats, and other large predators roamed the landscape, while the elements themselves, blizzards, avalanches, and icy rivers, posed daily risks. Every decision, from where to hunt to how to sleep, carried consequences that could mean life or death. Understanding predators was essential. Early humans observed behaviors, tracks, and seasonal patterns, learning which animals were active at night, which hunted in packs, and which were solitary. This knowledge informed hunting strategies, travel routes, and shelter selection. For example, knowledge that wolves often approach camps at night may have led to the rotation of night watchers or the strategic placement of fires to deter attacks. Awareness of predator behavior allowed humans to anticipate danger, turning unpredictability into manageable risk. Predators were not merely threats, they were also competitors. Wolves and other carnivores vied for the same prey, sometimes scavenging from human kills or disrupting hunting strategies. Early humans had to manage the dual challenge of hunting effectively while defending their resources. Strategies included constructing enclosures for food, placing traps along migration paths, and coordinating group hunts to minimize losses. These interactions fostered both ingenuity and vigilance, illustrating that survival was an ongoing negotiation with the natural world. The use of fire played a pivotal role in defense. Flames acted as deterrents, illuminating the surrounding area and signaling human presence. Smoke could ward off some predators, while the light allowed night watchers to detect approaching danger. Fire also provided a psychological advantage, reducing fear and enabling humans to monitor their environment more effectively. The strategic combination of observation, fire, and human presence created a protective buffer, extending safety into the darkest hours of winter nights. Shelters were carefully designed to withstand predator threats. Entrances were often narrow or elevated, making it difficult for large animals to enter. Stones, branches, and other materials were used to reinforce openings, while the placement of sleeping areas allowed humans to respond quickly to danger. Social organization complemented these physical defenses. Adults often slept near entrances or took turns on night watch, while children and elders were positioned closer to warmth and safety. Shelter design and group coordination were inseparable elements in mitigating the constant threat of predation. Tools were essential in defense as well as hunting. Spears, knives, and clubs provided protection against predators when confrontation was unavoidable. Projectiles could be thrown from a distance, while sharpened edges served as last resort weapons in close encounters. The crafting, maintenance, and strategic placement of tools demonstrated foresight and adaptability. Early humans understood that survival required both proactive measures and rapid responses, integrating technology into their defensive strategies. Communication and alert systems were also critical. Night watchers, scouts, and hunters relied on signals, calls, or gestures to convey danger. Groups developed early warning mechanisms, whether through coordinated vocal signals, banging objects, or lighting torches in strategic locations. This constant vigilance required coordination and trust, ensuring that threats could be addressed before they escalated. The ability to anticipate and respond to danger collectively enhanced survival in ways that individual skill alone could not achieve. Predation risk influenced daily routines and mobility. Humans timed hunts to avoid predator activity, moved cautiously through dangerous terrain, and used knowledge of the landscape to minimize exposure. Even simple decisions, like where to camp, how to approach water sources, or which routes to take during migration, were shaped by the presence of predators. Life in the Ice Age demanded constant calculation, observation, and adaptation, with every action contributing to the delicate balance between safety and danger. Predators also shaped social behaviors and cooperation. The need for collective defense reinforced group cohesion and clarified roles within the community. Adults assumed protective duties, hunters coordinated with night watchers, and all members contributed to maintaining vigilance. Trust, reliability, and shared responsibility were not just cultural values. They were survival imperatives. Groups that failed to maintain cohesion or neglected defensive strategies faced higher risks of injury or death. Social structure and survival were inseparable in the presence of constant threat. Psychological adaptation was equally vital. Living with persistent danger required mental resilience, heightened awareness, and the ability to act decisively under stress. Humans developed strategies to manage fear, using ritual, storytelling, and community support to maintain focus and morale. Knowledge of predator behavior, combined with practical skills and social cooperation, allowed humans to reduce uncertainty and maintain a sense of agency. The Ice Age human mind was shaped by threat, blending fear with creativity, vigilance with innovation. Even environmental threats, such as avalanches, ice cracks, and sudden storms, demanded similar strategies. Humans observed the terrain, identified hazards, and developed contingency plans. Shelter placement, route selection, and seasonal mobility were all influenced by environmental dangers. By integrating knowledge of predators with environmental awareness, humans created a dynamic survival strategy that encompassed both biotic and abiotic threats, illustrating remarkable cognitive and observational abilities. Children and vulnerable members were protected through both physical measures and communal vigilance. Knowledge of predator behavior was taught through storytelling, demonstration, and practice, ensuring that even the young could participate in safety strategies. Social norms emphasize collective responsibility, with each member contributing to the monitoring, defense, and alert systems. The integration of learning, practice, and social expectation ensured that survival skills were transmitted effectively across generations. Predators, therefore, were a central force shaping human evolution. Their presence drove technological innovation, social cooperation, and cognitive sophistication. Early humans learned to plan, observe, and communicate at unprecedented levels, using both physical and psychological strategies to mitigate risk. The balance between confrontation and avoidance, observation and action, fear and control, defined the Ice Age human experience and forged resilience that would persist across millennia. In essence, living on the edge required a synthesis of knowledge, skill, and social organization. Fire, shelter, tools, communication, and observation all combined to create a defensive network capable of responding to constant threats. Ice Age humans were not passive prey. They were active participants, learning from predators, adapting to environmental pressures, and developing complex strategies for survival. Predators shaped behavior, technology, and society, leaving an indelible mark on the story of human endurance. By studying how humans defended themselves against predators and environmental hazards, we gain insight into the extraordinary adaptability, intelligence, and creativity of our ancestors. Survival was a multidimensional challenge, integrating physical skill, strategic planning, social cooperation, and psychological resilience. The constant presence of threat forged innovation, reinforced community, and honed human cognition, essential ingredients in the evolution of a species capable of enduring the harshest climates on Earth. In the unforgiving winters of the Ice Age, survival was often determined by movement. Early humans were not stationary inhabitants of a frozen landscape. They were migratory navigators, constantly adjusting their location to follow prey, access water, and seek more favorable shelter. Winter imposed severe constraints. Snow-covered plains, frozen rivers, and bitter winds demanded careful planning, knowledge of terrain, and the ability to anticipate environmental changes. Each journey was a calculated balance between opportunity and risk, guided by observation, experience, and necessity. Migration was driven primarily by resource availability. Large game herds, essential for sustenance, moved seasonally, and humans tracked these migrations over vast distances. The patterns of reindeer, mammoths, bison, and other animals dictated routes, timing, and duration of travel. Humans observed subtle environmental cues, the orientation of the sun, wind patterns, snow density, and vegetation changes, to predict the movements of prey. This knowledge allowed them to optimize hunting success while minimizing energy expenditure and exposure to extreme cold. Journeys were rarely undertaken alone. Mobility required coordination and cooperation within the group. Decisions about when to depart, which route to take, and how to distribute labor were made collectively. Scouts would survey terrain for obstacles or predator activity, while others carried essential supplies, tools, and clothing. Even in the midst of scarcity and danger, social cohesion was paramount. Movement reinforced communal bonds, requiring trust, shared responsibility, and careful synchronization of tasks. Groups that failed to coordinate risked straying into dangerous territory, exhausting resources, or encountering predators unprepared. Winter travel presented unique challenges. Snow drifts slowed movement, ice concealed hazards, and freezing winds sapped strength. Humans developed strategies to navigate these obstacles, such as using natural corridors, traveling during optimal daylight hours, or layering clothing to manage body temperature. Footwear, clothing, and knowledge of terrain all became critical, enabling mobility that would otherwise be impossible in extreme conditions. Each step required calculation and attention, as a single misjudgment could result in frostbite, injury, or separation from the group. Shelters and temporary camps were integrated into migratory patterns. Humans did not carry all their possessions. Instead, they established waypoints with natural or constructed shelters. Caves, rock overhangs, and insulated huts served as staging points, providing warmth, storage, and protection for predators. These temporary refuges allowed groups to rest, process food, repair clothing, and maintain social structures during long journeys. Mobility was therefore a combination of endurance, strategy, and logistical planning, ensuring that movement enhanced survival rather than compromising it. Fire was central to winter mobility. Portable fires or pre-prepared hearths allowed humans to warm themselves, cook food, and maintain energy during travel. Nighttime movement often required campfires for safety and signaling, providing both illumination and protection against predators. Fire also acted as a psychological anchor, transforming vast, cold landscapes into navigable spaces where humans could maintain control over their environment. The strategic use of fire underscores the integration of technology, observation, and planning in Ice Age survival. Resource mapping was a critical skill for migratory success. Humans remembered locations of water sources, animal migration corridors, edible plant patches, and safe shelters. This mental mapping allowed efficient route planning, reducing wasted energy and exposure to risk. Knowledge was shared orally through demonstration, and sometimes through symbolic markers, ensuring that each generation retained the collective intelligence necessary for survival. The ability to interpret the environment, anticipate change, and coordinate movement exemplifies the cognitive sophistication of Ice Age humans. Predator awareness remained vital during migration. Moving through unknown or exposed terrain increased vulnerability, requiring vigilance, strategic placement of sentries, and the use of defensive tools. Groups developed early warning systems, maintained communication across distances, and carefully coordinated travel times to avoid peak predator activity. The constant assessment of threat, combined with the need for mobility, created a dynamic and demanding environment in which both cognitive and physical skills were continuously tested. Winter journeys were also influenced by climate and weather patterns. Blizzards, snowstorms, and temperature drops could force temporary stops or detours. Humans learned to read the signs of impending storms, such as cloud formation, wind shifts, and changes in animal behavior, allowing them to make preemptive decisions. Timing, speed, and route selection were critical, as delays could result in exhaustion, frostbite, or missed hunting opportunities. Environmental literacy was therefore inseparable from mobility, with each journey reflecting an interplay of knowledge, foresight, and adaptability. Migration shaped social structure and leadership. Decisions about when and where to move often fell to experienced hunters or elders who had accumulated knowledge of terrain, prey, and survival strategies. Leadership was not coercive, but based on expertise and trust, as the safety of the group depended on sound judgment. Roles were distributed. Some led navigation, others managed resources, while adults and youth took on specific tasks during travel. The constant need for coordination reinforced hierarchy, responsibility, and the integration of individual skills into communal survival strategy. Psychological resilience was tested during long journeys. Continuous exposure to cold, scarcity, and danger required focus, endurance, and morale maintenance. Social rituals, storytelling, and collective vigilance mitigated stress, providing both emotional support and practical guidance. Humans relied on each other to maintain confidence, energy, and strategic thinking, demonstrating that mobility was not purely physical. It was a cognitive and social endeavor as well. The integration of hunting, resource tracking, and shelter placement created a dynamic survival system. Migration was not random wandering. It was a strategic pattern informed by environmental cues, predator behavior, and communal knowledge. Humans constantly weighed the benefits of movement against its risks, adjusting strategies in real time. Winter mobility required balancing speed with caution, opportunity with risk, and individual skill with group cohesion. It was an ongoing exercise in adaptability, foresight, and resilience. Ultimately, migration and winter mobility highlight the adaptability and intelligence of Ice Age humans. Their survival depended on understanding the landscape, predicting animal behavior, coordinating group action, and mitigating risk in the harshest conditions. Movement was not just physical. It was a cognitive, social, and cultural process that integrated knowledge, skill, and cooperation into a coherent strategy for enduring one of the most unforgiving climates in history. By studying ice age migration and winter journeys, we gain insight into the remarkable combination of observation, planning, social organization, and cognitive skill that defined early human life. Mobility was a lifeline, a strategic response to environmental pressure, and a catalyst for social cohesion and cultural transmission. Each journey, carefully calculated and executed, illustrates the extraordinary resilience, adaptability, and ingenuity of humans living on the edge of survival in a frozen world. As darkness fell over the frozen landscape, the dangers of the ice age multiplied. Predators prowled, blizzards could strike suddenly, and fires needed constant attention to maintain warmth and safety. In these critical hours, survival often depended on human vigilance. Night watches that allowed groups to rest while maintaining a protective presence. Staying awake through the long, bitter nights was a demanding task, requiring skill, strategy, and resilience, and it became a cornerstone of winter survival. Night watches were carefully organized. Groups rotated responsibilities so that no single individual was overburdened, ensuring that alertness was maintained without complete exhaustion. Elders, skilled hunters, or the strongest members often assumed the first watches, trained to detect subtle signs of danger. Positioning was strategic. Watchers sat near entrances, fire edges, or elevated vantage points, where they could observe both predators and environmental changes. Their presence provided the group with a sense of security, reinforcing both physical protection and psychological well-being. Fire played a central role in vigilance. Flames illuminated the surrounding area, making it harder for predators to approach undetected. The crackle of wood, the rising smoke, and the occasional sparks offered both comfort and warning, signaling human presence to wildlife. Maintaining the fire required skill and attention, particularly in winter when fuel was scarce and weather conditions could extinguish flames quickly. Watchers had to manage these variables, balancing fuel use with the need for continuous warmth and light. Observation techniques were honed over generations. Watchers learned to detect subtle shifts in shadows, the sound of distant footsteps, or unusual animal movements. Even minor disturbances could signal approaching danger. These skills were not instinctual alone. They were cultivated through practice, mentorship, and social learning. Night watches became a form of experiential training, sharpening perception, judgment, and decision-making under stress, while simultaneously providing critical protection for the group. The psychological aspect of night vigilance was profound. Darkness magnified fear, uncertainty, and the perceived presence of threats. Maintaining alertness required mental discipline, coping mechanisms, and a clear sense of purpose. Storytelling, rhythmic chants, or ritualistic gestures may have been used to sustain focus and morale during long watches. The combination of mental resilience, physical alertness, and environmental awareness illustrates the cognitive sophistication of Ice Age humans in managing both real and psychological threats. Night watches also facilitated early warning systems. Watchers could alert the group to approaching predators, shifting weather, or other hazards. Signals might have been vocal calls, drum-like tapping on nearby surfaces, or fire-based signals, each designed to communicate danger effectively without attracting additional threats. This system of communication allowed groups to respond rapidly, reinforcing the principle that survival was as much about coordination and information sharing as it was about individual skill. The selection of who stayed awake was strategic. Individuals were chosen based on alertness, experience, and reliability. Rotations ensured that no single person became too fatigued, while vulnerable members, children, the elderly, or injured, were protected by the vigilance of others. This system reflected an advanced understanding of risk management, human capacity, and communal responsibility. Night watches were not arbitrary. They were a deliberate adaptation to maximize group survival during hours of heightened danger. Night vigilance extended to environmental monitoring as well. Ice formation, shifting snow, and sudden drops in temperature could all threaten life, particularly in shelters or temporary camps. Watchers monitored these hazards, adjusting fire placement, relocating vulnerable members, or reinforcing shelter structures as needed. Their role encompassed both immediate protection and proactive environmental management, illustrating the integration of observation, foresight, and action that characterized Ice Age survival strategies. Cooperation was critical during night watches. While one or more individuals maintained alertness, others slept, processed food, repaired clothing, or performed other essential tasks. The success of the system depended on trust. Sleeping individuals relied on the vigilance of watchers, while watchers depended on the cooperation and preparedness of the group. This interdependence reinforced social cohesion, demonstrating that survival in extreme winter conditions was both a physical and social endeavor. Night watches also had a cultural dimension. Stories, rituals, and communal knowledge may have been reinforced during these periods. Lessons about predator behavior, weather patterns, and survival strategies were likely transmitted orally, embedded within the practical demands of vigilance. Night watch duties may have been intertwined with symbolic or spiritual practices, blending survival with cultural expression. In this way, vigilance was not only a practical tool, but also a vehicle for knowledge transfer and community cohesion. The physiological challenges of staying awake through freezing nights cannot be understated. Cold, fatigue, and monotony demanded exceptional endurance. Early humans adapted by alternating tasks, maintaining movement, and using fire strategically to sustain warmth and alertness. Group rotation systems mitigated exhaustion, but individuals still faced significant physical and mental demands. These experiences honed resilience, situational awareness, and multitasking ability, skills that were essential for survival and later human development. Ultimately, night watches exemplify the intricate balance between individual effort, social cooperation, and environmental awareness. They highlight the integration of technology, observation, and psychological resilience into a coherent survival strategy. By staying awake, humans not only defended against immediate threats, but also reinforced social bonds, transmitted knowledge, and maintained the integrity of their group during the most vulnerable hours of winter. By examining night watches, we gain insight into the extraordinary foresight, discipline, and social intelligence of Ice Age humans. Survival depended on more than strength, tools, or fire. It required careful organization, acute perception, and trust within the group. Night vigilance transformed vulnerability into protection, fear into preparedness, and isolation into communal security. In the frozen darkness of the Ice Age, staying awake was not merely a task. It was an act of life, an expression of resilience, and a testament to the ingenuity of early humans in facing the harshest conditions on Earth. The story of Ice Age humans is a testament to resilience, ingenuity, and adaptation in the face of extreme adversity. For thousands of years, our ancestors endured freezing temperatures, scarce resources, relentless predators, and the unpredictability of the natural world. Their survival was not guaranteed. It was earned through observation, cooperation, innovation, and the careful blending of practical skill with social and psychological intelligence. By studying their lives, we gain insight into the foundational traits that allowed humans to endure and eventually thrive in one of Earth's harshest climates. Winter survival was a complex interplay of strategy, resourcefulness, and community. Fire, clothing, and shelters provided essential protection against the cold, while hunting, food preservation, and migration ensured sustenance. Night watches, rotational responsibilities, and social cooperation maintained safety and cohesion. Each action, from stitching fur garments to monitoring predators at night, was a deliberate choice aimed at reducing risk and increasing the group's chances of survival. These strategies reveal an extraordinary understanding of the environment and human capability, demonstrating that intelligence and adaptability were as crucial as physical strength. The cognitive sophistication of Ice Age humans is particularly evident in their ability to integrate knowledge across domains. They combine practical survival techniques with observation of animal behavior, environmental patterns, and seasonal changes. They created tools, refined clothing, maintained fire, and developed shelters with careful attention to both immediate and long-term needs. At the same time, they embedded knowledge within social structures, rituals, and storytelling, ensuring that lessons were transmitted across generations. Their survival strategies reflect a remarkable combination of empirical observation, problem-solving, and cultural transmission. Social life was central to survival. Cooperation, trust, and a careful distribution of roles allowed groups to achieve what no individual could accomplish alone. From coordinated hunts to collective vigilance during the night, every member contributed to the resilience of the community. Shared knowledge, mutual support, and communal responsibility created a protective framework that buffered individuals from the harshness of their environment. Social bonds were not optional. They were essential, shaping both practical survival outcomes and the emotional resilience needed to endure long, cold winters. Rituals and spiritual practices provided meaning, structure, and psychological relief. Firelit storytelling, symbolic gestures, and early ceremonies helped manage fear, fostered cohesion, and reinforced social norms. These practices illustrate that Ice Age humans were not solely focused on physical survival. They also sought to understand, influence, and give meaning to the world around them. Rituals intertwined with practical strategies, enhancing vigilance, reinforcing knowledge, and maintaining morale. The integration of belief and survival demonstrates the depth of cognitive and cultural sophistication present in early humans. Predators and environmental threats shaped behavior, technology, and cognition. Humans learned to anticipate danger, adapt strategies, and communicate effectively to minimize risk. Observation, planning, and coordinated action allowed them to survive in landscapes dominated by wolves, bears, saber-toothed cats, blizzards, and ice. These challenges honed problem-solving skills, spatial awareness, and decision-making under pressure. The Ice Age was a crucible that forged resilience, teaching humans to transform fear into strategic action, vulnerability into preparedness. Migration and mobility were essential for tracking resources and avoiding environmental hazards. Ice Age humans were not passive observers of their surroundings. They actively followed prey, moved between shelters, and adapted to seasonal changes. Routes were planned, risks were evaluated, and journeys were executed with remarkable foresight. Mobility required physical endurance, cognitive planning, and social coordination, integrating multiple survival strategies into cohesive action. Each journey reflected the balance between opportunity and danger, demonstrating the adaptability and intelligence that define the human species. Night watches exemplify the intersection of vigilance, social coordination, and psychological resilience. Rotational systems ensured that groups remained alert while allowing individuals to rest, maintaining safety during the most dangerous hours of the night. Observation, fire management, and communication skills were combined with trust and collective responsibility. Night vigilance illustrates the depth of planning, foresight, and social intelligence required to survive, highlighting how early humans actively shaped their environment rather than simply responding to it. The lessons of the Ice Age extend beyond survival techniques. They reveal a model of adaptation that combines physical skill, cognitive reasoning, social intelligence, and cultural knowledge. Humans learned to observe, interpret, and respond to complex and dynamic threats, while simultaneously nurturing community, transmitting knowledge, and creating meaning. These capacities laid the groundwork for the evolution of advanced societies, demonstrating that the ability to survive was intertwined with the development of culture, cooperation, and innovation. Modern humans can draw inspiration from these lessons. The Ice Age exemplifies how adversity can catalyze ingenuity, cooperation, and resilience. Even in the most extreme environments, humans develop strategies to manage risk, harness resources, and maintain both physical and social well-being. Observation, preparation, collaboration, and adaptability were the pillars of survival, reminding us that intelligence, Empathy and foresight are as crucial as tools and technology. Ultimately, the story of Ice Age survival is a story of human potential. It illustrates how our ancestors transformed vulnerability into capability, fear into preparedness, and scarcity into opportunity. Their strategies were holistic, integrating fire, shelter, clothing, hunting, vigilance, social life, and ritual into a coherent system of resilience. They demonstrate that survival is not only about enduring the present, but also about transmitting knowledge, strengthening social bonds, and shaping the future. By reflecting on these strategies, we gain a profound appreciation for the intelligence, creativity, and adaptability of early humans. The lessons of the Ice Age are timeless. Careful observation, strategic planning, social cooperation, and cultural continuity are essential tools for navigating uncertainty. In the frozen landscapes of prehistory, humans did more than survive. They innovated, collaborated, and thrived, laying the foundation for the enduring success of our species.